With the permission of the head of the department, I would like to start the program now. So first of all, I request all the dignitaries come on dais. Respected President of today's lecture series, Professor Jyotsna Srivastava ma'am, respected Speaker, Sir Professor P.R.Bhat, respected Speaker of second session, Sir Professor Paneer Selvam, Head of the Department, Sir Professor Anand Mishra, respected faculty members from our department and other universities, my dear students and research scholars. A very good morning to all of you. I'm Kalpana Yadav, Assistant Professor in the Department of Philosophy and Religion, Banaras Hindu University. So, I'm Kalpana Yadav, welcoming you all, uh, welcoming you all in the department on Radhakrishnan lecture series on the topic pluralism, multiculturalism, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. As we know that Deep Prajwalan and garlanding both are the tradition of our university. So I request all the dignitaries to to please garland the portrait of Malviya ji and light the traditional lamp. Now it's time for Mangala Charan. I request Vikas to recite the Mangala Charan.
ॐ यस्यांके च विभाति भूधरसुता देवापगा मस्तके भाले बालविधुर्गले च गरलम् यस्योरसी व्यालराट् सोऽयं भूतिविभूषणः सुरवरः सर्वाधिपः सर्वदा शर्वः सर्वगतः शिवः शशिनिभः श्रीशङ्करः पातु माम् श्रीशङ्करः पातु माम् वन्दे विदेहतनया पदपुण्डरीकं कैशोरसौरभ समाहितयोगिचित्तं हन्तुं त्रितापमनिशं मुनिहंससेव्यम् सनमानसालि परिपीतपरागपुञ्जम् जयति विबुधवन्द्या भारती भारतीया जयति विबुधवन्द्यो जानकीशोऽवधेशः जयति जगति विश्वकाशिका विश्वनाथो जयति जयति हिंदु विश्वविद्यालयोऽयम् यद विश्वविस्मयकरं चरितं महीयः वाचस्पतेरपि गिरां सुतरां दवीयः प्रातः सदा सुमनसामभिवन्द्यनीयः वन्द्यस्य मे मदन मोहन मालवीयः वन्द्यस्य मे मदन मोहन मालवीयः हरिः ओम्।
Thank you, Vikas. Now, I would like to invite Sneha and Kajol for the rendition of Kulgeet.
मधुर मनोहर अतीब सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या राजधानी राजधानी मधुर मनोहर अतीब सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या राजधानी राजधानी ये तीनों लोकों से न्यारी काशी सुज्ञान धर्म और सत्य राशि बसी है गंगा के रम्य तट पर ये सर्व विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी नए नहीं है ये ईंट पत्थर है विश्वकर्मा का कार्य सुंदर रचे है विद्या ये भव्य मंदिर ये सर्वश्रेष्ठ की राजधानी राजधानी यहाँ की है पवित्र शिक्षा की सत्य पहले शिक्षा बिके हरे चंद्र थे यहीं पर ये सत्य शिक्षा की राजधानी राजधानी भवेदेश्वर की सत्यवाणी बने जिन्हें पढ़ के ब्रह्मज्ञानी व्यास जी ने रचे यहीं पर ये ब्रह्म विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी वो मुक्ति पद को दिलाने वाले सुधर्म पथ पर चलाने वाले यही फले बोले बुद्ध शंकर ये राज ऋषियों की राजधानी राजधानी सुरम्य धाराएं वरुणासी नहाए जिनमें कबीर तुलसी भला हो कविता का क्यों आकर ये वाग विद्या राजधानी राजधानी विविध कला अर्थ शास्त्र गायन गणित खनिज भाषा रसायन प्रतीचि प्राची का मेल सुंदर ये विश्वविद्या राजधानी राजधानी ये मालवीय जी के देश भक्ति ये उनका संदेश ये उनके शक्ति ये मालवीय जी के देश भक्ति ये उनका संदेश ये उनके शक्ति प्रकट हुए है नवीन होकर ये कर्म वीरों की राजधानी राजधानी मधुर मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्व विद्या की राजधानी राजधानी मधुर मनोहर अतीव सुंदर ये सर्ववेद्या की राजधानी राजधानी.
Thank you so much, Sneha and Kajol. After this beautiful rendition of Kulgeet, I request head of the department to kindly felicitate our speaker. Sir Professor P.R.Bhat. Again, please felicitate Amir Selvam, sir. And felicitate President of this talk, Professor Jyosna Srivastava, ma'am. Now, I request head of the department to welcome our speaker and guest.
Hari Om. Honorable Chairperson Professor Jyosna Srivastava ji, our speakers, Professor P.R.Bhat, Professor Paneer Selvam ji, convener Dr. Kalpana Yadav, colleagues, students, friends present offline or online. I welcome you all in this lecture series of Radhakrishnan lecture series on philosophy and religion. Friends, today we shall have two lectures under two different lecture series, one by Professor P.R.Bhat, who is professor or who has been professor at IIT Mumbai. He would deliver his lecture on pluralism, multiculturalism, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in the Radhakrishnan lecture series of philosophy and religion. Another lecture would be by Professor Paneer Selvam under Jalal Mehta lecture series on culture and civilization. He would deliver his lecture on the idea of Swaraj. As you know, we have been organizing the different lectures under 3 lecture series: Radhakrishnan lecture series on philosophy and religion, T.R.B. Murthy lecture series on Buddhism, and Jalal Mehta lecture series on culture and civilization. We have actually proposed these 3 lecture series 2 years back. They were later on screened and accepted by ICPR under Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav lecture series. We get the lectures sanctioned by ICPR. Then we also applied for the required fund to IOE-BHU. They consented our request, and so we could organize 10 lectures under the series. Today is the last 2 lectures, as today is the, in fact, all these lectures were to be held by 14th August. So we are in a way concluding our lecture series. I hope in future we shall be able to continue these lecture series. We are really fortunate that today Professor Paneer Selvam would deliver his lecture on the idea of Swaraj. The famous, in fact, you know, K.C. Bhattacharya wrote a paper on this theme, and there was, in fact, the whole 20th century, in fact, social philosophy, or particularly pre-independence philosophy, was dominated by the theme of Swaraj. So that lecture would be very interesting, but this would be the after this present lecture under Radhakrishnan lecture series on philosophy and religion, where Professor P.R.Bhat would deliver on pluralism, multiculturalism, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. In these lecture series, we had already, as I told you, lectures by Professor Ambika Das Sharma, Professor D.K. Mohanta, Professor Pradeep Gokhale, and Professor H.S. Prasad under T.R.B. Murthy lecture series on Buddhism. Then under Radhakrishnan lecture series, we had already have lecture of Professor A.K. Rai and Professor R.C. Pradhan, who just few days back delivered his lecture on philosophy of Sri Aurobindo. So this is the 3rd lecture on the Radhakrishnan lecture series, which Professor Bhatt is going to deliver. I hope all of you would enjoy the lecture. I welcome once again, on behalf of the Department of Philosophy and Religion, Professor P.R. Bhat, Professor Paneer Selvam. I also welcome Professor Jyosna Srivastava, who is professor at Mahila Mahavidyalaya BHU. In fact, this is part of our own university. So I welcome Professor Jyosna ji in her own department. She is presiding the lecture of Professor P.R. Bhat. I also welcome the faculties who are present here, who are present online. I especially thank Professor Alok, who is presently Dean at Institute of Philosophy, Christnagar. I welcome Father Alok. I welcome all the teachers, scholars, students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. After this welcome address, let me give a brief introduction of today's speaker and president. So, we know that the speaker of today's lecture series is Sir Professor P.R. Bhat. He did his graduation and post-graduation in philosophy from Karnataka University, Dharwad. He did his PhD from IIT Kanpur in January 1980 and joined IIT Bombay as lecturer. He became head in 2001 and completed his term in 2004. He retired in 2016 as professor and continued as emeritus fellow till June 2019. He has published more than 50 research papers in reputed international and national journals of philosophy. He has jointly authored 2 books, Psychoanalysis as a Human Science Beyond Foundationalism and In Defense of Liberal Pluralism. He served as a member of several expert committees of ICPR Council for 2 terms. And we know that this session is being presided by Professor Josna Srivastava ma'am. So at present, she is working as professor at Mahila Mahavidyalaya, Banaras Hindu University. Recently, she has been awarded the degree of Doctor of Literature. She has been teaching since 1985. She has published more than 22 research papers in reputed journals. She has authored 2 books, प्राचीन भारतीय तंत्र युक्तियां शिक्षा का दार्शनिक आधार and Prachin Bharatiya Yog Parampara. She is Vice President of Bharatiya Mahila Darshan Parishad and life member of Akhil Bharatiya Darshan Parishad. And the speaker of second session is S. Paneer Selvam sir, who is former head of University of Madras. He has authored 16 books and he has published more than 85 research papers in reputed journals. So now, I would like to invite today's speaker, Professor P.R. Bhat. So thank you, sir. Please come.
Good morning, everybody. Respected Professor Mishra, head of the department, Professor Paneer Selvam, Professor Srivastava, and the madam, colleagues of the department, friends, and ladies and gentlemen. This is a humble attempt to understand Professor Radhakrishnan, whom I had not studied very seriously earlier. Professor Mishra gave me really a challenging kind of topic to make me study and present whatever I understood in front of you. Professor Radhakrishnan is known as an Advaitian, and as all of you would know, since you are related to either belonging to or student of or those who know PHU, the concept of Maya is misunderstood more than understood, I should say, after reading Radhakrishnan. Maya is said to be erroneous or illusory, giving you illusory knowledge. The term knowledge is a very key term here. And Advaita, quite a few scholars as well as those who have studied Advaita tend to say Maya is illusory or erroneous knowledge you will have if you believe in Maya. And under this perspective, if I have to speak about pluralism, multiculturalism, Vasudhaiva, Kutumbakam, these three technical terms, I will be speaking on illusion or erroneous knowledge. However, Radhakrishnan helped me to see it in a different manner. That's what I will be attempting to present today. When I was trying to write down something, what turned out to be large part is Advaita philosophy, the new interpretation or already well known to many as a background, and then introduce these three terms which he has given me as key terms in the topic. So let me begin with the general relationship between absolute Brahman on the one hand, the extreme other end of pluralistic realities of Maya on the other. So, Radhakrishnan studied in Christian College, Madras, I think, and he was, of course, belonging to the Brahminic tradition where Vedas are studied and Upanishads, and of course, Advaita and other Vedantic texts. He was aware of Indian philosophy, and in fact, that is his specialization. And he was made to learn about Christianity, and he took interest further trying to understand Christianity, its philosophy, its religion, and also later on in his career explored, I guess, other religions. Buddhism he must have known already. And matured philosopher, he had to find his own way of understanding different religions and different philosophies, of course. And he had the aim of trying to somewhere link all these so-called philosophy and religions in a respectable, cohesive manner. And I guess that's what he succeeded in doing, though many are not perhaps aware of the subtle way he links all these different religions, different societies, different cultures, and with Hinduism and Advaita philosophy. So, what I will do is to try to find the ground on which he links
these different aspects of religions and different philosophies of Vedanta, especially Advaita Vedanta, and trying to make room for Brahman, Jiva, Jagat, and so on. Everything that is valuable in Vedanta philosophy. Now, the most important thing he found in all this kind of linkage was the concept of spirit. Talking about spirit, he said, of course, even ordinary, even uneducated or uncivilized, if you want to call, person also has spirit. So he says, there is no human being who has no spirit. In other words, spirit is another terminology for what we call self, and sometimes we call jiva, and also at a very abstract level you might call it atman. But to begin with, all human beings are having spirit as well as body, which is the part of the physical part of the world. He believes like you are an organism having material aspect, what we know call matter, and then also the spirit. Material aspect is governed by what you might call natural laws, which includes biological and all other laws of science. Body obeys the laws of nature. If you slip, you will fall down. If diseases, that is external bodies or external jivas, invade you, you will suffer from diseases and so on. And spirit is housed in the same body. But Radhakrishnan doesn't face the problem of Descartes. No mind-body problem at all. Of course, that doesn't arise. That doesn't arise because spirit is in the body, but is not governed by laws of nature. I need to give you a little more explanation here, because normally freedom and determinism are opposed. There is something known as universal law of causation. Those who know, the arguments, they will say, yes, if the whole world is governed by a law of causation, natural law, let us say, you being in this world, your desire, your thinking, your willing, everything is governed by causation. You have no freedom. You might think that you are free and you have made the choice of studying philosophy. Sorry, you are mistaken. Bring in Freud, bring in other, psychologists who talk about, innate ideas as well as your subconscious desires and so on, and then tell you that you didn't choose it. You were forced to do your philosophy, or study your philosophy, graduation, post-graduation, and so on, because of the pushes and the pulls that the nature has. You have the illusion that you are free, you are not really free. Or if you surrender yourself, obviously you are compelled to surrender. This is the one kind of problem which philosophers face. How do you explain freedom? Radhakrishnan didn't face this problem at all. The reason is, his spirit is not in the domain of material causes. It is not part of the world, if you like that. But how is it there then? I would like to give an example where you can imagine how this is possible. Those who have studied geometry a little bit, they will be able to appreciate the argument well. So in geometry, we talk about one-dimensional object, that is a straight line or curved line, whatever. A line is one-dimensional. And they also define that line having no breadth and so on is just two dots are connected, as thin as you can conceive of. Not trying to physically draw, you have to conceive of, in fact. It's one unidimensional object. Then they are introduced the plane, that is two-dimensional object. It has length and breadth. And then you have the third concept of cube, which is three-dimensional object. Length, breadth, and height or depth. Now, you will see that the straight line that I talked about first, that is there in all three. It is there as a line. It is there in the plane or the two-dimensional object or space, whatever you would like to call it. And then it is in the cube as well. It is, the length, breadth, and height or depth, or whatever you can talk about. But other setups are not possible. Cube is not in plane. Plane cannot be in single dimensional space. So, in Advaita philosophy, as well as in other, except Charvaka perhaps, other schools of India, as well as in Western philosophy, whoever believes in spirit or soul, the soul is something like, or the spirit is something like single line. It can exist in the other two modes. Like that, the spirit, which doesn't have breadth or length or height, whatever, that can be there in the body. But if it is not there, it is a dead body. When it is dead, people claim that the soul is not there. It is liberated or it is gone out of the body. So if you understand this analogy, now you can understand how transcendental or transcendent things can exist, be immanent in the world. There is no magic in this. This is all very clearly, logically possible. Now, this concept is invoked to explain why spirit can be in the body, yet not governed by physical laws. Body is governed by physical laws of nature. loss of motion, loss of rest, or chemical loss, biological loss. One of the biological laws is that we always grow or age. Aging is inevitable. You might use all kind of cosmetics to appear young. You can have, if you have gray hair, you can use black color, whatever, and look young, not young. You won't become young. Well, you can be young in heart, in the sense that you cut jokes, you are mischievous, you can, all that behavioral, you know, aspects you can try to imitate or reproduce again, but you are already old. So, biological laws, chemical laws, all these laws are governed, are applicable to your body, but not to your spirit. Spirit doesn't grow old, it doesn't become young either. It is what it is. This is the kind of concept which Radhakrishnan was trying to explain to everybody. Then there is another term that creates significant problem till today, according to me. The body, so-called, our organism, as I mentioned, is caused and effects are there on it and so on. Drug addicts, for example, its effects are so much so that the person loses his independence, the freedom to such an extent he kills his own parents or siblings for getting money. Why does he need money? To buy drug, of course. There are n number of cases of this kind. Parents assuming, after all, he is my son, he will not harm me so much. I don't money, let him get cured. Let him give up his bad habit under the assumption that he has the freedom to give up. Sorry, you won't know when he has lost his freedom. And if he has lost his freedom, he might initially persuade, later on threaten you. If that also doesn't work, physically corner him and manage the money. So there are cases of that kind where I'm saying cause and effect, we become ultimately like any other wild animal or any other kind of lower grade human being. Of course, Radhakrishnan is aware of our weaknesses. He talks about our instinct, emotions, this, that, and he is trying to suggest, please recognize that you are a free being. If you don't recognize that, keep on pursuing one pleasure after another, how to earn more money or get more money, how to indulge more in the worldly affairs, and so on and so forth, not recognizing that you have spirit in you or you are the spirit. So, this is what is causation affecting you. Universal law of cause. But Radhakrishnan is trying to pull you out of this blunder. You are spirit, your core, what you call you. That is the spirit that you are talking about. It has a special energy or ability. He says, which I used to say to my students in IIT Bombay once in a while, for the sake of realizing you have the ability or your spirit, try to fast one evening or skip one meal. Can't you do it? I can do it. All right, that is a simple thing. Then I would challenge you, decide on one particular day you will not get angry at all on anybody. If you cannot manage anything, keep quiet. Let people say anything, insult you, so on and so forth. And I further mentioned to them, suppose you decided you don't want to get insulted on a particular day when you are going to present your paper. Let us say your own friends and others pull your leg, trouble you. Don't get irritated, nothing. You are not going to get angry, get irritated. Try it out. Yes, one can succeed. Now that, how do you succeed? That is because of your spirit, because of your freedom. You have exercised your freedom in this kind of context and started realizing your own power, spiritual power. So, this is what he tried to communicate to the people who read his lectures or listened to him. He said, your freedom is direct, inversely proportion to your bondage. If you are feeling bounded, then you are not free, of course, to that extent. And if you control or limit your needs, there are people, I have heard such people. One fellow, my classmate in my college, said, I cannot get out of the house unless I have, polished shoe. He said he cannot go out without shoe. There are others who have told me that they cannot go out of the house unless they have ironed clothes. And there are others who say that I cannot, unless I have cigarette, I can't go to toilet. I heard all kinds of cannot. Look at those cannot. They only tied their knees with their own cannot. Really, these are not cannots. I simply say, what happens? Suppose you go without shoe, without chappal, what will happen? People will laugh at you at the most. You also laugh with them. What will happen? Nothing. So like this, every I cannot is your own making and your own tying down to something which is as if it is a military command. Otherwise, you will be, removed from military. Sorry, this is what we should realize. Quite a few cannots are not really helplessness. And this is unfortunately quite a few people develop psychologically. There is nothing like cannot of this kind. Of course, you cannot fly in the air without aeroplane maybe, or helicopter or something of that kind. That belongs to physical cannot. Drug addict cannot leave the drug unless, there is a certain method that one has to follow. You cannot stop it immediately, but reduce the doses and so on. Eventually, you may be rehabilitated. So this is one kind of causal relationship we have, of course, with nature. There is another cause and effect relationship people talk about, which is philosophically most important. While talking about Maya, for example, Maya is caused by Brahman. I would say this is a misuse of the term cause. Why? If you have cause and effect relationship, you will know, like Kantian philosophy would say, It is both in space and time. It has to be in time. Cause should be at least, even if you are not able to measure it, temporally, logically prior to the effect. The effect cannot be simultaneous. It has to come after the cause. Otherwise, this cause and effect distinction has no meaning. Whereas in the case of Maya and in the case of Brahman, both are anahadi. They don't have temporal dimension at all. Anahadi, eternal. Brahman is eternal. Ananda, of course, refers to that aspect. Satchit Ananda, that is eternal, unchanging. Because it is not temporal, so it cannot change. Change is always with respect to time that we talk about and physical properties. Both are not there with Brahman, Nirguna Brahman. So, in the case of Maya and Brahman, it is one of, in a way, dependence. Maya depends on Brahman. That is, like in the case of the phenomenal world, we talk about substance and attribute. Attribute is appearance, and substance is the basis on which our attributes are dependent on the substance. So gold is substance and yellowness is its property. Or gold is substance, yellowness is its appearance. Yellow color is its appearance. Shapes can be, of course, various kind. So substance and its attributes, or nomina and phenomena, they are said to be causally related, but not of our ordinary causation. Our ordinary causation has temporal dimension, has other dimensions, like if you talk about the movement, Newton's law, let us say, a physical object which is in motion has some force. I have taken the example of, let us say, water. Water could be stagnant water, and it has no force at all. Stagnant water has no force. But the stagnant water, if it is in motion, river flowing fast, or brook flowing fast, or turbine moving after the water is flowing from high altitude to lower through the pipe, a turbine can be moved and electricity is produced. Hydroelectricity is produced. So the motion has energy or has power, and static water has no power. Extend this to Brahman. Brahman, if he is Nirguna Brahman, he has no this kind of activity at all. He doesn't change. He is pure Sat, he is pure consciousness, and doesn't have any attribute. These Chit, Sat, Chit, Ananda, three are there, but they are not description of Brahman. They are Brahman, not a property or attribute of Brahman. But Brahman, when he has the power like the moving water, then yes, that is Maya. And Maya is able to create all kinds of things, all pluralities, all kinds of spatio-temporal objects are there, or phenomena are there. So cause and effect relationship, which is of this kind, substance and attribute or nomina, phenomena, they are simultaneous. They are not one after another. It is not substance is there, then energy comes. It can be, in the sense, Brahman without, yes, Maya is possible. In other words, Advaita philosophy believes when the spirit, when you elevate yourself in the spiritual domain and become Brahman, Brahmanubhava, one of Brahman, then your Maya disappears. That is, in other words, you have to become Brahman, motionless. Analogy of motion, of course. So, this is what is Advaita philosophy. Without talking about Maya as an error. Adhyasa, all right. It is a superimposition or it makes you think in a certain way, is fine. Or ignorance, avidya, even that is fine. Because the jiva, which is in the ordinary level, doesn't know, like the drug addict didn't know that he could have stopped at the early stage of his disease or habit, bad habit. Or the other, my friends, who were helpless without the shoe, without the iron clothes, and so on. They are all helpless because they never exercised their freedom. They never believed that they have freedom. Only while voting, because political parties persuade you to vote and this, that, they thought that they could. Otherwise, they didn't even examine what is their freedom. Radhakrishnan talks about progress, development. If in the modern days, we talk about development. And he says most of the people have misused this term or wrongly used this term. What does development mean? So if you listen to politicians and so on now, so development means, first of all, you meet all the basic needs: food, shelter, clothing, medicine, whatever. That is what is basic need. All human beings must meet. Why only human beings? Even animals in the zoo also must get all of that, whatever they need. Food, at least, proper shelter, and so on. Then there are people who talk about development. Standard of living. What is it? Oh, you should have a vehicle, maybe a scooter, maybe a car, things of that kind. You should have good bungalow where each one of you get one room where if you want to study or practice yoga and so on, you must be able to do, and so on. If you want to see the world, you must be able to travel. You should be rich enough to travel all over the world. Only in terms of material things. At the most, well, you must be able to have a TV, enjoy your films or news, this, that, whatever you want to know. You must have a mobile. Of course, these days you can't even think of a person without mobile. You want to open bank account, you must have Aadhaar, you must have mobile, you must have email, what not. They have become basic necessities these days. Anyway, this is the direction in which ordinary human beings go. Radhakrishnan says, you have not evolved at all spiritually. You remained what you were as a young man, maybe, or young woman. I'm sorry, he would say, please spiritually also develop yourself. He points out that the spiritually, those who are trying to develop spiritually, another blunder the saints of India committed or are committing. He says they believe that Your involvement in the world doesn't allow you to spiritually progress. Become a sannyasi or reduce your contact with friends and relatives and so on, and cut down your demands, luxuries and so on. Become a sannyasi, go away from village, go away from town, Haridwar or Rishikesh, something of that kind you think of. Depend on whatever arm you get and try to minimally, have your needs and then try to meditate and things of that kind. Radhakrishnan says, sorry, this is not at all necessary. You can be involved as well as try to be like Sthita Prajna of Bhagavad Gita. What is Sthita Prajna? Who has achieved at a spiritual level, very high level. Mysticism he talks about. And mysticism, you are a mystic provided you have succeeded in elevating yourself spiritually at a very significant level. We have talked about, in Indian philosophy, artha, kama, dharma, moksha. Moksha, of course, is abstract concept for all the ordinary people. They are always involved in kama, and for achieving kama, they need artha. Dharma, if at all, if they can't break it, or if punishment is substantial, then you behave like a respectable citizen. So you are ethical because you have no other way. But this is not what spiritual development is. For Radhakrishnan, you should, have artha kama, but in a controlled way. If you have legitimate earning, if you can take up a job or anything and spend them for all means essential biological needs, well, limit them, have control. Self-control is the key to spiritual elevation. And when you spiritually elevate, generally you go to level where you are called mystic at a certain level. And he describes mystical, virtues. What are they? According to him, truth, non-violence. You will never do violence if you are a mistake. You will be always truthful. You will be always peaceful, loving, not agitated, not annoyed or not, irritated and so on. You are not impatient. You don't have these worldly evils at all. And naturally, you will start treating other human beings as human beings. Kantian maxim, don't treat others as merely means, treat them as end. You naturally start treating them end. You naturally start loving irrespective of his religion, irrespective of his customs, irrespective of his or her sex and so on. So, this is what he is trying to point out. If you are spiritually high, automatically you would, start respecting people from any religion because you see a spiritual, saintly aspect in that person. So, Radhakrishnan talks about universal religion. Mind you, the term religion he uses in a specific way. He uses religion as universal religion, that is the property of a mystic, truth loving, non violent, honest, sincere, duty bound, and so on. So he will not call someone who is irrational, who is, emotional, and who is slave of his senses, etc., spiritually high. He doesn't belong to human, so-called Kant's kingdom of ends, the people who are noble and a kind of spiritual beings. The people who belong to this religion, universal religion, potentially everyone, of course, who is in the human form, but for him, those who don't believe in specific religion, those who insist that you should not do this, that, since you are a Christian, you are a Muslim, and so on, then he is not religious at all, according to Radhakrishnan. Yes, he worships his own God or whatever, but he is not spiritual in nature, and his spirit is animal spirit, almost like other animals. So, given this, he makes use of his concept of rationality. All human beings who know language are rational, but rationality of a maybe limited kind. So, nowadays in the Western kind of philosophy, you will hear rule following. Kripke, in fact, introduced this kind of term for his own purpose, of course. Rule following is that you make the rule and follow the rule. Nothing more than that. But learning the language involves rules. Whom to call he, whom to call she. For example, the simple male and female rule that you must know how to apply to a particular person, he or she. Like that, every term in a language will have its own rules. Or you might call it the, usage or meaning and so on. So these rules, if you are following, you will have to follow consistently, systematically. If the male has to be referred to in English, it has to be he. Sometimes, all the people who talk gender neutral language, they were trying to develop, of course, English professors generally. Sometimes they suggested use the term they. It could be male or female. Or some people write S/HE, he or she. In writing, you don't want to distinguish male or female. S/HE. These are all tools to develop or express certain attitude. Nothing wrong in it, but sometimes, you might need the terms to refer to male alone. Male dominant society. How can you say if you are using they or he, she together? Anyway, so linguistic rule, and if you have learned the language, you have learned how to obey the rules or follow the rules. And that is the minimum level of rationality. Use the rule following thing in the context of morality. Say, for example, when you talk about equal rights, what is that equal rights? All human beings, well, grown up one, mentally sane, not the insane person. They are all equal in a democratic country, at least in our country. Now, they are all have the right to vote. Not only, there are other fundamental rights anyway, but all are equal. Doesn't mean that all are equal in other senses. But in terms of voting right, all are equal. Those who are, as I said, not insane, above 18 or whatever, that is the age limit, assuming that you should be matured enough to know which party, which government, which kind of, principles you appreciate. Now, this particular thing, the justice is defined rationally. You treat equal things equally. Then you are just. Or if you do not treat unequal equally, say for example, you give, there are some little crazy professors I know in IIT Bombay. They used to give only one grade, all A's. There are 4 or 5 students. They don't want to discriminate anybody. All because they don't attract, such professors don't attract many students. Mediocres come there for A grade because they want to have higher CPI, and all will be given A, irrespective of your attendance, irrespective of what you write. Of course, they are not really teachers, serious teachers. If grading system is there, if there is, big gap between the highest scorer and the lowest scorer, he should give at least 2-3 grades or different grades. So then you are unjust. If you treat, unequals equally, then also you are doing injustice. What is this? This is rationality. Rule followed not followed properly. So the concept of justice is born when you have learnt language. You will realize even a small kid of 2-3 years, if elder brother is given 2 chocolates and the girl is given only 1, if she has observed, she would again open and ask for the second chocolate, even not knowing how to express that, only crying or demanding. And after grow up little bit and knows the language, they will argue, you have given 2 to the brother, you should be giving me 2. Where is the sense of injustice? The child has learned, because child has learned rule following. And that is what Radhakrishnan is trying to point out. If you are at a certain level of mistake, naturally you don't want to discriminate yourself from others. You can't be selfish. If you know that you need food, shelter, and clothing, you will plead for others also to have food, shelter, and clothing. This is the reason you will find that even after liberation or nirvana, Buddha came back. He is called Bodhisattva. After liberation, why are you coming and getting into this muddle of the world? He simply said, I can't allow to others to suffer. It is my duty to show them the path of liberation or nirvana. Same thing, you will say, Sthita Prajna will do. The person who has realized, according to Bhagavad Gita, he would like to help others to liberate themselves. Same thing you will see in Shankara trying to establish different mathas, trying to has taught, or Brahma Sutra Bhashya tried to explain. So things of this kind. Why liberated people also are behaving like ordinary people? Of course, ordinary people with a difference. They dress like us, maybe eat like us, and so on, rest like us. But their concerns are entirely different, and selfish people like us, who is after dignity, after money, and things of that kind, we are not at all spiritually even half closer to them, perhaps. The mistakes, true mistakes, are definitely quite closer to such liberated people. Now, my task was to talk about pluralism, multiculturalism, and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. All right, let us turn to these three concepts. Pluralism is not a problem for those who have understood Maya as the power of Brahman, and of course, pluralism is available. You can talk of pluralism in epistemology, logic, or even political parties, or what not. Yeah, pluralism, Nyaya pluralism, many realities, and so on. Yes, but pluralism in this kind of context, I take it as multi, society with different religions, with different customs, different, cultures, and so on. So when you talk about pluralism of this kind, if it is of one society, what is inevitable is, the one society, if they are coexisting, living in one place, they need to have patience. They need to be accommodative. This is what is a need for pluralism. In pluralism, people would like to retain their identity. How you retain your identity in society? Well, your religion gives you one identity. Then another kind of thing is your culture gives another identity. And like that, if you have a society group of a certain kind, well, that gives you as identity, social identity, or another type of professional identity. You belong to, teaching community. That is another kind of identity. But in a pluralistic society, normally we talk about, well, religion-based pluralism. Culture also, their culture shapes. For example, in Hinduism, so many rituals are tied to the religion or mythology, Mahabharata, or Ramayana and so on. So, customs, tradition, even dance, drama are related to the culture or mythology or, that kind of thing. And similarly, that is true of other religions also. They have their own rituals, their own festivals, their own traditions, their own uh, dance forms and songs and music and so on. Arts, different kind of arts. So, religious tolerance, I must point out this to you explicitly. Radhakrishnan appreciates tolerism of Hinduism. He has, of course, studied and he knows that foreigners have ruled India for several centuries. Several, earlier Mughals, of course, later on followed by, Britishers and different other parts, Portuguese and French people and so on. So all of them have ruled India, sort of came here and they ruled, I mean, they were the kings and so on. But Radhakrishnan appreciates the Hindu ability to retain their spiritualism despite ruthless rule by some of these foreigners. He says he is proud of, and he says Hindus have retained their spiritual identity. Even today, you will find many people speaking of God, religion, but in spiritual terms. So he said Hindus truly have tolerance. They do not hate other religious people and so on. They accommodate, they allow, they live, they let live others. So this is the most core thing about Hindus. That is what he is trying to point out. And using this, he tried to work out the middle ground. That is what is his universal religion, which is, of course, patient, accommodative, loving, caring, non-violent, and, of course, truthful, honest, and so on. So, the same spirit is trying to find in any society, whether it is pluralistic or whether we talk about multiculturalism. India is both, because it has adopted several rituals that we perform today. Part of it seems to be belonging to Mughal. This thing, part of it is, these days even birthdays are celebrated, even in my remote village, coming from Christianity perhaps. So like this, because for Hindus, somebody is born, that is not a happy occasion. Why? You know that a soul has come into the world for suffering. And in Chennai, when I had gone there, you see that old man dying, and his dead body is taken, procession is going, and they are dancing, music, and flowers are, offered kind of. It is a sense of happiness that an old soul which was bounded here is liberated. What a profound concept. Hindus believe in that actually. The Jayanti, etc., now we celebrate big persons Jayanti and so on. We have Gandhi Jayanti, we have, of course, Buddha Jayanti and so on. But God is not born like that, we believe, at the same time. God is eternal. So, this particular stage of mysticism or elevated spirits, okay, they are on the one hand linked themselves with other ordinary human beings. On the other hand, they are related to God, realization, self-realization of God. So this has made Hindus speak about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One family. Of course, several paths to liberation and several cultures, several rituals and so on. We could appreciate all religions, their cultures, their language, their customs and so on. At the same time, belong to everybody. All of us belong to one absolute or one God on the one hand, if you are a realized person, on the other hand, with all human beings. This is the way Radhakrishnan, tried to understand these three terms. Of course, he has not extensively written, exclusively written on these topics, but in his lectures here and there, he had given several lectures after becoming even president. and you would see traces of all these elements. And about the religion and other things, of course, he has published certain papers, and his lectures are published. They are all available. And I thank you for patient hearing, and thanks the department and his colleagues for inviting me here. I hope I did minimum justice to the topic. Thank you. I welcome questions and no problem, of course.
Thank you so much, sir. Nice interpretation presented by you, sir. Now the session is open for discussion. If you have any question. Oh. So now, wait. I want to invite Paneer Selvam, sir. Sir, please come. He wants to speak something, I think. Ma'am is saying something.
Respected Professor Anand Mishra ji, Professor P.R.Bhat sir, who has given a wonderful lecture, Professor Yoshna madam, and my colleagues and student friends. We are very grateful to Professor P.R.Bhat sir for delivering a wonderful lecture on Radhakrishnan's understanding of pluralism and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I would like to make few observations. First of all, in Radhakrishnan's understanding, I always feel that he could not give justification for the term illusion or Maya. Why? Because his famous statement is, unreal the world, illusory it is not. That is a famous statement of Dr. Radhakrishnan. And many traditional Advaitins, especially my department, that is, my department is committed to Advaita, a Center for Studies in Philosophy, wherein Advaita was promoted, of course. There were great philosophers like P.K. Sundaram, Professor R. Balasubramanian and others, who argued that Radhakrishnan did not understand the distinction between illusoriness and. So, in fact, our department has brought out a volume on Radhakrishna's centenary year, wherein one full volume has been written by various scholars, articles they have contributed, wherein it has been argued that Radhakrishnan has not done full justice to Advaita Vedanta. How far this is correct, I don't know. But this is what the traditional Advaitins understanding with regard to Radhakrishnan's approach to Advaita. And secondly, Professor also talked about very nicely about the universal religion which he is talking about. Of course, we find Swami Vivekananda, who is also speaking about universal religion. But the notion of universal religion is once again little problematic. who are the people who are represented in this universal religion? Because it is a very vague term, at least with regard to different religious sections or religions like Hinduism, Christianity, Judaism, Islam. It's very clear. But who are the members who belong to this universal religion? Why this universal religion has not come into existence so far? That is another problematic area according to Radhakrishnan. Of course, my general criticism, I don't know whether I am right in saying that here, because I have a feeling. In fact, I used to tell my students, read Das Gupta, but not Radhakrishnan. For the main reason, Radhakrishnan, if you read Indian Philosophy Volume 1 and 2, in each and every page, you can see how he was comparing Indian philosophy with that of the Western tradition. He would quote Bradley, Plato, all philosophers in order to justify that in India we too have philosophy. I feel that such a justification is not at all needed, because we don't have to see Indian philosophy from the perspective of the Westerners, because he was wearing Western spectacles and then he was trying to understand Indian philosophy. This is little problematic. But if you read Hiriyanna or Das Gupta, it is very clear that how they've developed each and every system. Like Das Gupta, or you read the writings of Hiriyanna. So I feel that with regard to Indian philosophy also, he has not done full justice. Of course, this does not mean that I am underestimating the great contributions of Radhakrishnan. No, that is different. But as a student of philosophy, I feel that there is little problematic with regard to his approach. Then Professor talked about the spiritual progress and the material progress, and how Radhakrishnan was interested in spiritual progress. Of course, this is a very, very novel idea which he has developed. And for this, we have to congratulate Dr. Radhakrishnan for making such an attempt in this direction. But one thing we have to understand, the context in which his philosophy has emerged. And very rightly, Professor P.R.Bhat sir has pointed out that he was trained in Madras Christian College. I also had the privilege of studying in Madras Christian College. During Radhakrishnan's time, the Department of Philosophy or the entire college was fully supported by the Christian missionaries. Where the class, I'm told that they used to criticize Indian philosophy, Indian philosophical tradition, especially the concept of karma, moksha, by saying moksha is otherworldly and all that one. So the Radhakrishnan has to give a counter to them. That was his major this thing. His teacher was A.G. Hogg. The classroom, there used to be a debate criticizing Indian philosophical tradition. That's why when he was in MA, he wrote one dissertation, Ethics of Vedanta, which is available in Oxford University even now, where he said that Indian philosophy is not otherworldly. And when Indian philosophers talked about the doctrine of karma, they've got some other points which have been missed by the Westerners or the Christian missionaries. So what I'm trying to say is, the context in which his philosophy has emerged is something very important, no doubt. But I think this need of the hour to go beyond Radhakrishnan's approach to Indian philosophy. And it is very much essential for us to support our own system of philosophy without depending on Westerners' tools. In fact, I am going to talk about that. That is the indigenous methods which we ourselves have developed. I think that is very much essential in philosophy. And that I would call Swaraj in ideas. Of course, I shall be discussing this in detail. But I've been very much fortunate, I would say, to hear Professor P.R.Bhat, who is a very great scholar. And his approach is always, his uniqueness is that he has the analytical tool in his hand. So you can apply that to Indian tradition as well as Western tradition. And he has seen Radhakrishnan from a different perspective, which has to be appreciated. But these, my comments, which I mentioned here, are generally against Dr. Radhakrishnan, whom I have got a very high regard, because my institute name is Dr. Radhakrishnan Institute. But as a student of philosophy, one has to be very critical. So this is what I would like to say, and I've been very much benefited by his wonderful lecture. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Now questions are invited. Please come. Please come. Hmm. Okay.
Good morning, sir. It was really a nice presentation, and I just want to ask you. I have some inhibition on your uh, the title, the pluralism. As we have know, as Radhakrishnan is a Advaita philosopher, he is preaching the Advaita. So how, and also we know that the pluralism is a concept coined with the Vaisheshika philosophy. So how he has connected these two concepts in his philosophy. And another one is, I think it's beyond your presentation. Is the term spirit similar to the concept of self in Indian philosophy? If it is so, what will be his concept of liberation? Is Radhakrishnan's concept of liberation? Is it a self-realization, or does he had mention anything like a spirit realization? Thank you so much, sir.
आवाज आ रही है?
It's my mistake. I didn't elaborate on one of the points which I had written down, of course, but forgot to mention. See, the difficulty of this illusion, especially about Maya, arises when you use the language of the transcendental world and the language of the ordinary world. If you mix them up, this problem is inevitable. Error in perception, we talk about, let us say, rope appearing as snake, and we call it a mistake, or if you want to call it, he had illusion. He thought that it is a snake. It is not a snake, it is rope. But mind you, whether it is illusion or other one, subject, that is the basis, substance, and attributes, they are simultaneous. In both the cases, it is the same. But this is ordinary language. We talk about error in perception. We talk about misperception. Somebody going, walking at a distance. I see his walking style as my friend's, and I infer that he is my friend. It totally that is possible. But Maya is unreal. To whom? Only to Brahman, not to us. Unless, it is like this. If you are sitting here, you will see things around. Go to the terrace. You don't see these things, but you see something else. So like that, a realized person sees no Maya. And if he has to talk to you, he has to use your language and say, it is error. You are mistaken. There is reality. Maya is not there. Because when I realize, I know that Maya is my construction. He has become Brahman, Maya Shakti or so here I would suggest when we use the language, let us be careful about which domain it belongs. Error in perception, illusion, mistake, all these are ordinary language terminology. And we ask the question to Shankara, who is a realized person, if at all he responded. People claim that he has not responded. You know, the Srinivas Rao has written 3 myths in Advaita philosophy or something, published by East West, Philosophy East West. So he also defends this thesis that Maya is not illusion. Shankara has never maintained that. He has given certain context. He says quite a few more arguments can be provided from Brahma Sutra and other literature. So I would suggest, I missed it this point, the transcendental, very technical language of philosophy should not be taken to be ordinary language terminology. So Maya, or even if it is taken as illusory, unreal, but it is in a special context, from the point of view of Brahman, it is, adhyasa or illusion. The second, universal religion. See, again, ordinary language. When we talk about religion, we talk about their God, let us say Christianity, their God, or at least Christ, and then you talk about the love and other things he appreciates and kindness and so on, and the rituals, Good Friday or 25th December, and so on. So that is the ritualistic part. That is the phenomenal part that we are talking about. And all people who mention religion, they mean generally these things. Radhakrishnan tried to see the so-called religious core. That is what he talks about, is the mysticism. He says in any developed religion, there are always mystics, and all the mystics share this particular feeling or this particular thought that truthfulness, honesty, non-violence, love for other beings at the essence of human beings, at the level of spiritual dimension of religions. He called this component as religion, not in the customary, ordinary sense of the term of religion. In fact, I would go to one step further and say, this is what is philosophical religion, if you want to call it, not philosophy of religion. Don't confuse that also. Okay? Therefore, I would say if Radhakrishnan is accused, who is the member of that religion? Everybody potentially. All can be liberated, all can be mistakes, according to Radhakrishnan. There is no human being who has no spirit, but animal spirit, very low level of spirit. They don't cultivate like mistakes. They don't cultivate spiritualism. Therefore, they are not many and have not become member of this religion. Otherwise, many will agree. If those who are saintly or mistakes or moral, highly moral people, spiritual people or moral people, automatically, as I said, justice and other values of morality will be applicable. Naturally, for a mistake, it is natural to be moral. For some people who are only moral, but they will become spiritual because of morality. Because they will not do any, immoral things and against other human beings. So they will be also equally more spiritual. So morality and spirituality will be almost coextensive. So it covers similar kind of people, but potentially all of us are member of this kingdom, conscious terminology, of course, kingdom of hands. All of us are potentially the same, but we should strive to become higher in spiritual. In Advaita, of course, that is the kind of goal. Your liberation is the goal of man. And in other religions also, some kind of spiritual journey. And ultimately, if you are blessed by the God, you will be godlike. At least you will have all the virtues of great saints. Yeah, I mean, this charge against him that, well, he is trying to do Western this thing, that is his concern. Since he was in Oxford and here and there, he knew Western philosophy and Western friends he had. Obviously, they will ask questions and so on. And he found it painful to, you know, listen to them dismiss Indian philosophy altogether. You have no philosophy. Up to that level they go. Even today, there are many who believe that Indian, that is religion, not philosophy. So therefore, I know Radhakrishnan and others had debated long back. What is Indian philosophy? Is it Indian religion or Indian philosophy? Is Indian philosophy different from Indian religion? Unfortunately, we never felt distinguishing philosophy from religion so much. We start with Vedas. It is both religious as well as philosophical text. Academic debate will be philosophy. Religious, practices will belong to religion. But philosophers involving in religious problems like Radhakrishnan try to rationalize, understand, try to intellectually comprehend what is being done by religious people and so on. That's why, the attempt of the Krishna bring philosophers and so-called Sanskrit scholars together, try to discuss, debate, and so on. Of course, that was a failure, he says. So that is the other one. And karma theory, of course, karma theory, he has made his observations. He calls it, karma is disposition. Last lives or whatever karma is there, it is disposition. It makes your tendency. We talk about sattva, rajas, tamas. Again, in Sankhya, they are all not causal determination. It is not fatalism. Karma theory is not fatalistic at all. If we talk in details, prarabdha karma, sanchita karma, and then agamika karma, some future karma. Future karma is not decided, depends on your action, present action. There is enough freedom in karma theory as well. So those who talk about fatalism, this, that, they have not understood karma theory at all. So Radhakrishnan has understood, according to me, he considers to be disposition. It is a tendency, compulsion. Like those who are habituated to have pan or cigarette, they have a tendency to go for it if there is an occasion. If pan is not available at all, and they cannot grow the pan leaf, parakanatli, chuna, everything, they will have to give up pan, of course. So it is something of that kind. Karma theory is not properly understood. That is the kind of response to that kind of thing. And I really didn't get the questions of the other person, pluralism and what else? I didn't. Can you make it a little more clear?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Sir, I just want to know, it's audible. His Advaita philosophy is always, we know that he is Advaita concept. So Advaita is a monistic philosophy. So as you are in his title, the pluralism has that. So how he has explained the pluralism in his Advaita philosophy? Means the monistic concept. And another one also, I just want to ask you, that is a concept of moksha. Means what is the end of this physical life he has mentioned? Yeah.
So as I try to explain, he is inclusive in a sense. Christians, Muslims, all of them are or can be spiritual beings, and they are. And there are mystics in those religions. Mystics means spiritually elevated people who don't consider, difficult to imagine, of course, because, in Islam, Muharram, for example, one sect celebrates Muharram, reminding themselves the historical event where their so-called king was butchered. And they say, if I were there at that time, I would have seen you. In other words, I would not allow you to kill him. So it is emotion, anger, and the pain of losing your so-called grandson of, Muhammad. And that, of course, is in fact opposed to the spiritual, as Indian, Radhakrishnan also felt that Indian saints run away from society and try to meditate, practice spiritualism. He says that is not needed. In fact, that is going against you because there is no chance for you to even become a dharmi. You can't even become violent if you go alone and stay in forest or belt of remote area of Ganges and so on. Be in the middle of people, yet don't be immoral, don't be violent, don't be uncultured. That is the lesson he wants to give you. Therefore, pluralism he could very well talk about because it is at the phenomenal world, not at the liberated world. He is the mundane world. So many citizens of so many religions and sects and tribals, so on are there. That is not denied. But if you are a liberated person, your goal should be liberation or become, in Hindus, this thing, become Brahman. And once you become Brahman, you can easily see other sects and other things as the vikara of Maya. The other one is, goal is, of course, according to him, highest elevation that is possible is becoming yourself the Brahman or the God or be in the vicinity of God. So that is not different. Hinduism believes in that. That is what he says.
May I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Professor Bhatt, and also thank you, Professor Paneer Shelvam, for giving us uh, a view or provoking us to look into this whole idea of pluralism and multiculturalism in the current context. The old context of Dr. Radhakrishnan is no longer there. That was a colonial context. He was to refute the charges of the Britishers. So that is not the context of today. But what we see today, given the fact that universal religion is a very, very distinct possibility, and mystics are very few in every religion. So, can we limit, restrict, or reduce religion to mysticism only? One thing. Second thing is that philosophy of religion or the philosophical view of religion is very thin. The thick view of religion in which we live is the social phenomena, social reality of religion, and where the followers of each religion fight against each other, and they have been fighting since the dawn of history. And this philosophical understanding of religion has not helped. The talk of tolerance has not gone into the ears of the followers of each religion. Given this fact, some ideas like secularism, multiculturalism were floated. Now, my question is pluralism is simply existent. Plural society, multicultural society is the reality. Pluralism and multiculturalism are the ideologies, are the devices to deal with such conflicts. But multiculturalism and pluralism is just many. So this reality does not help us when they are contesting among themselves. Multiculturalism was tried, but it has also failed in many countries because the groups they remain in their own cocoons and they remain in conflict with each other, claiming their own cultural and religious rights, which discriminate against even the members of their own cultural groups. And they also face the pluralist dilemma because once we accept the pluralism of cultural groups, the question of social cohesion becomes in conflict with uh, this recognition of cultural and religious groups having special rights. So I think we should think about this whole idea of multiculturalism, pluralism in the modern day society, not think only in terms of Vedic or Advaitic terms, where we just think that one becomes spiritual, he becomes automatically moral. That has not happened throughout Indian history, and we should rethink. Why not respond to the current day and the challenges which even we are facing in India today? Thank you.
On here.
Yeah, most welcome your suggestion, but it will be in a way out of context because it is Radhakrishnan, series of lecture on Radhakrishnan's philosophy, and of course, one could debate in the direction you are suggesting. We can go to the real problem of religious diversities and the conflicts. Yes, what you're talking about is present day situation. Definitely, yes. But don't you think a nation like Pakistan, which has accepted only Islam as their religion, other minorities may be tolerated, but it will not be toleration of, the kind Hindu toleration which Radhakrishnan talks about, respecting other people equally, allowing them to retain their identity, and becoming the respectable members of the society, equal respectable member, that you will not find in a society where religions, the whole nation is declared as, Islamist country or things of that kind. Over there too you have restlessness of all kind. I think Pakistan is number 2 in the world in terms of violence and so on. Last number, not the first two. Anyway, if you are going to talk about that kind of pluralism only, then of course philosophy has lost its, reflective ability and guiding ability. Philosophers should be visionary. And Radhakrishnan in that sense was visionary. He said there is no human being who is not spiritual at all. Unless he is insane or unless he is a baby kind of thing, he would be spiritual. I try to argue that. So, anybody who has adequate knowledge of language and reason is spiritual. He has to be moral first, and then he will become spiritual. Self control inevitable, and so on and so forth. One knows, like Hobbes' philosophy, where constant war, constant, opposition is unlivable. Therefore, he talks about, well, social contract. There may not be a historical event like that, but nevertheless, it is necessary to compromise with other people who are opposing you in some way or the other. So this tolerance and intolerance, if you talk about the fight and this, that, Radhakrishnan would say, well, try to be towards tolerating. Don't show impatience and intolerance. So I guess there he is correct. As a philosopher, he is giving general guidance. And his universal religion, again, he is not talking about as practiced today. That is anthropologist's job, sociologist's job to describe how people are religious, what are the habits they have, what are the cultural events they celebrate, and so on. There are other people who can do it. So religion in a philosophical sense is more important for a philosopher rather than religion in an anthropological sense or sociological sense. I hope minimally I answered you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The lecture was wonderful. My name is Francesca, and I was seeing the idea of the pluralism and multiculturalism, the idea of universal religion, as the idea of the general social perspective, the idea of truthfulness, the idea of the justice. I guess it is in a general term. But the idea of the spiritual growth, the spiritual achievement, I guess this is a personal thing. I guess in Advaita Vedanta, for example, we are having the notion of devotion, bhakti. I guess this is also a very important point. I don't know how Radhakrishnan's view was about the idea of bhakti, how much important it was in the spiritual growth. Because I guess spiritual, it's stuck itself about the self, about the person. That's, thank you.
Certainly, you are right in saying that bhakti is individualistic. Also, spiritual also is individualistic. Each individual has to elevate himself or herself spiritually, meaning thereby, don't be slave of your senses. Don't continue to. We are, of course, as child, we are definitely slave of senses. But you have what is called jiva or ego, empirical self, whatever the terminology. You should be elevating yourself, strengthening yourself, have more and more self-control. I mentioned that, the freedom and the bondage, they are inversely proportional. If you reduce your bondage, your freedom will be more, your needs will be less. So it is in that direction, self-control, that is what is usually talked about. Control in food, sleeping, and even in indulgence in anything. So helping others, all right, but not at the cost of yourself. Helping others at the cost of yourself would be disservice to yourself. So your spirit, meaning thereby ego or whatever, that should be elevated. Self-control. See, Jivan Mukta, if one person becomes Jivan Mukta, all other people don't become. It is not collective liberation. It is individualistic, but similar. You can become like your teacher by learning from teacher and reading other things and other teachers, etc. You might become better teacher. So in the same way, if you develop your spirit, you can become one day God, that is Brahman. But in other religions, it will be said, maybe God. You will be, pleased by God. He will bless you. He might keep you just in the inner circle of his, whatever, his kingdom. Thank you.
Please come, Rahul.
Wait.
Thank you so much, sir, for your really thought-provoking lecture. Though I have a couple of queries, very quick questions. In your discussion towards your very early part of your lecture, you did mention about a spirit, right? And a spirit which is completely free from this world, right? As if a spirit has nothing to do with this kind of organic body which we all are having, right? So in a sense, a spirit is always embodied and not completely separate from this human body. And you said that uh, even when people get older, right, they can still maintain that spirit intact, as if the spirit is not linked with your body. But I can see it is more linked to counterfactuals. I mean, when people really get old, their spirit is also similarly dying, right? I mean, when you get old, you are losing your memory, you are not able to work properly, you are not able to respond. People do get senile. Now, I don't understand how we can really talk about a spirit which is completely uh, estranged from the human body. And moreover, when we talk about the somebody is spiritual, we always assess how that person respond to others' needs, how that person actually lead his or her actions. And that is inevitably linked with the organic body. So if we only focus on spirit as if it is completely estranged from the organic body, then it gets linked with a kind of thinking and ideas, whereas body, the organic body, is completely eliminated. And that is where all kinds of conflicts come into place, because we forget that the spirit is aligned with the organic body. So when we say that somebody is highly spiritual, it is that somebody has trained his embodied self to look at certain things, to look at others, and how to respond to other needs, and how to take his actions. Another question is the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, right? Though in terms of thought and idea, it seems perfectly okay. But if you really look at this in terms of the content and how this Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is really to be actualized, then this idea has serious problems within, right? On the one hand, we can talk about the entire globe is one family, but then within our own country, we have eliminated the Sudras, we have eliminated the women by saying as if they do not constitute really to be being human. And this is what deeply problematic. When we say all rational beings are human, and that is how you constitute the equality available among all the human beings, but then you can go on eliminating peoples by terming some of the sections as if they do not exhibit the real standard of rationality. So I think this is where we have to see how we can really constitute the idea of equality on something idea of rationality, or we can constitute this idea of equality on the basis of that we are all capable of having pain and suffering. So rather than having some very abstract concept of rationality. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. You are very right. In the old days, people lose their ability to remember, and in the old days, even rationality reduces, ability to think reduces, and so on. Maybe one is bedridden for months together before one breathes the last breath. So I never, nor Radhakrishnan will say that spirit is not bounded by the body. It is at a different plane altogether. I mentioned that we are governed by laws of nature, biological, chemical, physical, and so on. Gravitational force will act. If you fall down from staircase, you will come down. Whether old man, young man, middle-aged. This law of nature will apply to you all through till you are burnt or buried. Anyway, so I have not denied, nor Radhakrishnan denied. But what Radhakrishnan did was to point out to you, you can remain always like an animal. Animal, what does it do? Instinct, behaves instinctively. If it finds food, it will go for it. If it is hungry, if it sees the enemy, like tiger, dangerous thing, run away. If we are also doing the same thing, you are at the animal level. You have spirit, but you are in terms of habit and your culture, that's all. The Radhakrishnan is emphasizing on self-control. Minimize your indulgence and have your freedom, overcome your biological compulsions. This is what he is trying to say. Say, for example, take our own example of Gandhiji. Gandhiji could overcome quite a bit of these, animal level instinct. He is not very high spiritual, but nevertheless more than an average person. Only one Gandhi could be born in India. So, there are Buddha and others, but Gandhi is little less. And the other one, you are talking about. So, spirit is definitely, I gave the example of a line being in the plane as well as in the cube. Here, a line is like spirit, which can be transcendental as well as immanent. After death, where is it? So you never ask that question, right? But Radhakrishnan would like to know. He believes in karma theory. So if you have done good actions, next life will be better one, if at all. If you are a realized person, no birth again. Okay. The other one is, nobody is denying. Respond to human being. He is also saying, your love for others, sympathy, helping, everything is granted by a universal religion, by a mystic. Though mystic need not have to have a nameplate. You can be working in the world like a simple teacher, simple peon, yet be mystic, like Sthita Prajna. Sthita Prajna need not be so-called, saintly kind of dress. They can be ordinary person for look-wise, even behavior-wise. But concern is, that is the other one. And then Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, you are talking about Indian society, what it is or what it was. When Aryans came, they talked about four Varnas. So the tribals one were, Shudras kind of thing. The others are Dvija, twice born. That means having third ceremony, meaning education, introduction to education, their own troubles, whatever they are. So it is because of Aryans that has happened, but that doesn't mean that we can't correct that. You don't need laws, etc., to correct that if you are a spiritual being. You respect that human being as much as you respect yourself. That is the one which ground is trying to work out. So these are not, I'm not denying that they are problems. We need to do. There are very few spiritualists, clear commentators. Yes, that's why there is a need to emphasize. There are very few PhDs. Doesn't mean that. There are very few PhDs or distinguished professors. That doesn't mean that they are unimportant. It could mean that you should achieve that. There might be only one God. That doesn't mean that it is inferior. That may be most important one. Thank you.
Now, thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Professor Jyotsna ma'am for presidential remark. Please come, ma'am.
Thank you, Dr. Kalpana. Respected Professor Anand sir, our learned speaker, Professor S.R. Bhat sir, Professor Paneer Selvam sir, and my guru, Professor D.N. Tiwari sir. He taught me when I was in the department. And Dr. Kalpana, Dr. Rahul, and Professor Satish sir, and dear students, and the other faculties, and the faculties of the other departments, and dear students. First of all, I'm giving my thanks to all of you, especially Professor P.R.Bhat sir. We all are grateful for his methodical, logical, analytical, and thought-provoking lecture. We all are very grateful to you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. There is no need to make any comments or presidential remarks. मेरा ये दुस्साहस नहीं है कि आपके इस लेक्चर पर मैं कोई कमेंट करूं, बिकॉज मेरा जो आधा काम था, मेरा आधा काम तो पनीर सेल्वम सर ने कर दिया. थैंक्स टू पनीर सेल्वम सर, एंड देयर इज नो नीड टू गिव एनी प्रेसिडेंशियल रिमार्क्स. बट और वैसे भी मुझे थोड़ा कहा गया है कि हम लोग हाफ एन आवर लेट हो चुके हैं, तो हम थोड़ा समय का ध्यान रखें और हम कोई रिमार्क्स ऐसे नहीं दें. बट ये जो प्लूरलिज्म, द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ प्लूरलिज्म, मल्टीकल्चरिज्म, वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, सॉरी, ये कॉन्सेप्ट जो है, द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ सोशियो पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफी, ये वास्तव में जो कॉन्सेप्ट है वो सोशियो पॉलिटिकल फिलोसफी में है. यूनिकनेस ऑफ इसी लेक्चर कि उन्होंने he gave his lecture in light of Radhakrishnan's philosophy और Radhakrishnan's metaphysics. उन्होंने इस कॉन्सेप्ट को राधा कृष्णन की फिलोसफी के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में उन्होंने दिया है. ये एक यूनिकनेस है, एंड आई थिंक देयर इज नो नीड टू एनी रिमार्क्स. थैंक यू सर, सो मच सर. बस हम एक दो लाइन और इसमें ऐड करना चाह रहे हैं आनंद जी की परमिशन से, सिर्फ 2-3 लाइन, और कोई रिमार्क्स इसमें नहीं करेंगे. I want to make this concept very easier to understand. ये जो प्लूरलिज्म है, या मल्टीकल्चरिज्म, ये सब हमारे प्रेजेंट सिनेरियो के कॉन्सेप्ट हैं. आइडियोलॉजी ऑफ वसुधैव कुटुंबकम, ये श्लोक है हमारे महानारायण उपनिषद का. द वर्ल्ड इज फैमिली, यानी एक वर्ल्ड जो है, ये संसार जो है, एक परिवार की तरह है। महाभारत में भी कहा गया है कि आप कुल के लिए अपना स्वार्थ त्याग दो और अपने राज्य अपने ग्राम के लिए अपना परिवार का स्वार्थ त्याग दो और अपने देश के लिए अपने ग्राम का स्वार्थ त्याग दो। तो ये त्याग जो है जिसमें वेलफेयर फॉर ऑल यानी हम सभी के कल्याण की कामना करते हैं। तो ये जो वसुधैव कुटुंबकम है ये सिद्धांत अभी जैसे G20 का ये स्लोगन बन गया है कि वन अर्थ वन फैमिली एंड वन फ्यूचर। तो ये वसुधैव कुटुंबकम और ये इस तरह से ये कॉन्सेप्ट तो हमारा आज आया है, लेकिन हमारे यहाँ वसुधैव कुटुंबकम जो है ये बहुत पहले से है। तो और जो मल्टीकल्चरिज्म है इज ए फिलोसॉफी ऑफ कोएग्जिस्टेंस, एक्सेप्टेंस। ये जो मल्टीकल्चरिज्म है इज एन अमलगेशन ऑफ डिफरेंट रेसेस, कास्ट, लैंग्वेज, रिलीजन एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा एक्सेट्रा। हम जैसे हमारे देश में बहुत सारी जातियां हैं, बहुत सारी भाषाएं बोली जाती हैं, बहुत सारे धर्म हैं, लेकिन हमें इनके बीच में विवेकानंद जी ने कहा था, सर ने विवेकानंद जी का भी उल्लेख किया यूनिवर्सल रिलीजन का, लेकिन वे टॉलरेंस को नहीं मानते हैं, वे एक्सेप्टेंस को मानते हैं। टॉलरेंस में क्या है कि हम जबरदस्ती एक प्रेशर है, लेकिन एक्सेप्टेंस में हम खुशी के साथ उन्हें स्वीकार करते हैं। तो ऐसा मुझे लगता है कि ये जो मल्टीकल्चरिज्म है या जो यूं कह सकते हैं कि जो वसुधैव कुटुंबकम इज ए सोल ऑफ मल्टीकल्चरिज्म एंड प्लूरलिज्म। अगर हम वसुधैव कुटुंबकम को लेकर चलेंगे क्योंकि ये उसकी आत्मा है, तभी हम वास्तव में स्वीकार कर पाएंगे अन्य धर्मों को, अन्य धर्मों की आइडियोलॉजी को, उनके रिलीजन को, उनके वैल्यूज को। और जो प्लूरलिज्म है वो डिफरेंट वैल्यूज से रिलेटेड है, डिफरेंट रिलीजन्स में डिफरेंट फिलोसफी में वैल्यूज हैं, उनको हम एक्सेप्ट करते हैं, उनको हम स्वीकार करते हैं। वैसे तो मुझे थोड़ा सा और बोलना था लेकिन समय नहीं है और इसीलिए आपकी आज्ञा का पालन करते हुए मैं अपनी वाणी को विराम देती हूँ। थैंक यू सो मच। आप सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, ma'am. And the next session will be convened by Professor Sir. Okay. So I would like to invite Dr. Baleshwar sir for formal vote of thanks. Sir, please come.
Good noon to all and everyone. You all are welcome in the first session of today's lecture. As you enjoyed very extensively and deliberated lecture of Professor P.R.Bhat. So he deserves the most and we are thankful to him. And first I would like to thank Professor Anand sir, the head of the department, Philosophy and Religion, who is inspiring force of organizing such like lecture program. And secondly, I would thank Professor P.R.Bhat. Though I was not present in his lecture, but when I came to this hall, when the question answer session was going on, and he was beautifully defending his thesis. So you are, we have been hearing you, sir. We have been listening you for many, and you have visited our departments before this as well. So we are thankful to you. And now I extend my thankfulness to Professor Jyotsna Srivastava ma'am, who gave her presidential remark, and for Kalpana ji for convening beautifully this session. And I would also like to extend my thanks to Professor Paneer Selvam sir, who is present here, and he will deliver in the second session of today's lecture. Professor Tiwari sir, Professor Satish sir, Dr. Rahul ji for asking a beautiful question, and the entire gathering of students who supported by their presence, and making this event very successful. I also like to thank Sneha and Kajol for rendition of our Kulgit and in chanting the sacred eulogy, that is Mangala Charan by Vikas Pandey. So I would like to thank you all once again, and there will be a break of 5 minutes, and after that we will assemble here once again for the start of second session of today's lecture. Thank you all.